I wish we had never come to Jerusalem. That is the truth. I wish we had never come. I knew it would be dangerous. I knew. But I thought, I believed that I could keep him safe. I could keep Jesus safe because I was Peter, the rock. I could keep him safe. You can ask anyone who knows me. Anyone who knows me. I have confronted 100 men and never backed down. I have stood in the bow of my boat on the Sea of Galilee in the fury of a storm, and I have not backed down. I was afraid of no one, no man, no priest, no temple guard, no Roman. I was Peter, the rock. I would keep him safe. Well, it started well. We arrived at the city like all the other pilgrims there to celebrate the Passover, and Jesus asked if we could find a colt for him to ride. Well, it's easy to do so. He comes riding into the city on that colt. And it was amazing. People lined the street. Not just a few. No, there were hundreds of people gathered there, and they greeted him. They greeted him like he was a king. They took off their cloaks and they laid them down, and they tore off palm branches and placed them on the road. And they shouted, "Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." And as I walked beside him, I thought to myself, I had been wrong. There's no danger here at all. Look how they greet him. Look how they welcome him. Look how they honored him. He would be safe. The crowd was with him, and I was watching over him. We went from that entry up to the temple. And as you know, in the temple there's an outer court. You know the place that I'm talking of. It's where they sell all the animals for the sacrifices. And it is a marketplace. And as with all marketplaces, there are thieves. And there were thieves there, of course. But no one said anything. No one ever said anything. But Jesus, on that day, he took a coil of rope and he made a whip. And he drove out all the money changers. He overturned the tables and the coins on the ground. And he is shouting, "You have made my Father's house a house of prayer into a den of thieves." And you should have seen how they scattered. Oh my! They were like chickens running everywhere, this way and that. Oh, it was a sight to behold. And I don't know who laughed louder, whether it was Andrew or myself, and the crowd. Oh, they loved it. But I could see in the shadows, oh yes, there were the priests and the scribes, and they were gathered in little clusters and talking among themselves. And I knew they would be unhappy, but what could they do? The crowd was with him. And I, Peter, was watching over him. The rock. In the coming days, he would return to the temple, and each day he would gather people around him, and they would sit for hours listening to him teach and preach. And still in the corners, there were the authorities. I kept my eye on them. But again, the crowd was with him, and I was watching over him. He would be safe. It would all change on Thursday. In the evening, we had gathered in the upper room to celebrate the Passover. The meal had been prepared, and Jesus was at the head of the table. And as we began to eat, he took us by surprise. And he said to us that one of us would betray him. We were shocked, as you can imagine. And one by one, we declared our loyalty. How could it be any of us? The meal continued. And then he did something unexpected. He took some of the bread and placed it in his hands, and he tore it apart. And he said, "This is my body given for you," and we ate it. And then he took a cup of wine, and he said, "This cup is my blood shed for you and for many." And we drank from that chalice. There was such sadness in his words and in his actions, as though he were saying goodbye. Little did we know. We left from the meal, and we headed out to the Garden of Gethsemane. We were singing hymns along the way, and then Jesus said again, "All of you are going to run away. All of you." And I told him to his face, "Not me. Not me. Not Peter, the rock." And you know what he said to me? He said, "Simon, Peter, before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times. Anyone who knows me knows I have a short fuse. And up to that point, I'd never been angry at Jesus. But I was angry with him. How could he, who knew me, say that I would be a coward? And so I let him know the strongest terms, even if it costs me my life. I will never leave you. We got to the garden, and Jesus took John and James and myself, and we went a little farther. And he asked us to stay awake while he went and prayed. Impossible. Late at night, I ate too much. I drank too much wine. I was soon asleep. Next thing I know, Jesus is waking me up and the others, and there's a commotion, and I see coming over the hill, it's a crowd, and they are angry, and there are torches, and in the lead of the crowd, Judas, my brother disciple, Judas, leading the crowd to Jesus. I could not take it in. How could he betray Jesus? And he comes up. Can you imagine? He came up to Jesus and he takes him in his arm. This man who he betrayed takes him in his arms and he gives him a kiss. And the crowd, they take a hold of Jesus. I would have none of this. I am Peter, the rock. And so I take out my sword and I slice off the ear of one of the servants. I would have taken them on, every one of them. I would keep him safe. No one would harm Jesus. Not with me, Peter, the rock. And I hear this voice. It's Jesus who said, put away your sword. Those who live by the sword will die by it. And if it was any other man, I would not have done so. But because it was Jesus, I did as he commanded. I put my sword away. And the crowd, they bound Jesus. And everyone ran, as Jesus had said they would, but not me. Not me. I followed at a distance as they took Jesus to the house of the high priest. And they went inside, and I stayed out in the court. It was cold that evening. And so I warmed myself by the fire with the soldiers, and I could overhear what was going on. I could hear the accusations. I could hear the lies. But here's the mystery. Jesus didn't say anything. Not a word. Not until the end. And at the end, he talks about the Son of Man coming in his glory, and then all hell broke loose. Cries of blasphemy, anger, and wanting to take him before Pilate. And in that commotion, in an angry response, something happened to me. I became afraid. In the darkness, in the anger, the confusion, Peter, I became afraid. And so when a young girl, one of the servants, came and looked at me and said, you were with him, you are one of them. I said, no. I did not know the man. And so I went over into the shadows, and so as not to be seen. And this young girl, she follows me and points to me again and says, no, you were one of them. And again I said, no, I do not know the man. And then a third time, someone else, and they said, surely you're one of them. You're Galilean. Your accent gives you away. You are one of his followers. And to my shame, I grew angry, and I cursed, and I shouted, I do not know the man. The one who I followed. The one who I loved. The one who I said I would lay down my life. I declared before them all, I said, I do not know the man. And I heard the cock crow. And through the crowd, I could see Jesus. And he could see me. And there was such pity in his eyes. I remembered my words that I would not deny. And I remembered his, that I would. And I broke. The rock crumbled. And I ran. I ran from that place and from my shame. I ran as fast as I could, and I ran until I could not run anymore. And I fell on my knees and I wept. I wept like a child. All the rest seems like a blur from that point on. I was in the crowd as they brought Jesus before Pilate. I can still see him standing there. He had been beaten. He wears a crown of thorns. And he looks so utterly alone. And Pilate, he turns to the crowd. He knows that the accusations are false. This is all a pretense. And so he asks the crowd gathered, "What do you want me to do with this Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews?" And the crowd, the very crowd that had greeted him as king, cried out, "Crucify him!" And I cried out, "No! For God's sake, no!" But the cry continued. Even when Pilate tried to set free one of the prisoners and offered to us either Jesus or this man Barabbas, a known killer, the crowd said, "Give us Barabbas!" Drowned out my own voice. Let it be Jesus. Let it be Jesus. They took him away with two others that they crucified outside the city walls. I was too ashamed and guilty and fearful to go. Women far braver than me. I could not watch him die. I could not. The women were there, though. They've come to me afterwards. Such a kindness, undeserved. We plan to go tomorrow after the Sabbath to the grave to anoint the body. But they came to see me. And they told me what happened. And here is the wonder. Above all wonders. You would think that as Jesus hung on that cross, and as the skies darkened, he would have looked down on those who placed him there. Those who had tied him to that cross, those who had hammered in the nails, those who had lied about him and reviled him and spit on him and cursed him. Those who betrayed him and ran from him, denied him. You would think he would have rage. You would have thought he would have damned us all, and he would have been right to do so. But he did not. That's the wonder. He did not. From that cross, he spoke words of forgiveness. Father, forgive them. They do not know what they are doing. How can there be such compassion? How can there be such forgiveness? How can there be such love? I tell you this, more than anything else, I will treasure that gift of love given to one who does not deserve it. I will treasure that gift of love, and that gift of love will be my rock. And on that rock, on that love, I will live my life. On that rock, on that love, I will stand. On that rock, on that love, I will hope. Now and always. Amen.